2:10 in the morning. Ireton Court. He walks into the house quietly, heads into the kitchen, opens a drawer, and grabs a knife. Upstairs, his wife is asleep. Right next to her, their 3-year-old daughter. In the next room, their 2-year-old son. He walks into the bedroom, and within seconds, the screaming starts. He's on top of Michaela, stabbing her in the neck. Again and again. Julie and their friend Casey rush upstairs. They don't realize it yet, but they're already too late. Julie tries to pull him off. She falls, and just like that, he turns on her. The same blows. The same brutality. Casey is wounded, but somehow manages to break free and run out of the house. Julie tries to reach the door. She collapses on the stairs. She can't move anymore, and in that moment, he picks up his little daughter and walks out into the night. Just minutes later, cameras catch him. He's walking through the streets with a knife in his hand, his clothes covered in blood. He walks into a place, looks at someone he knows, and says, "No one believed me, but I did it. I stabbed them both." Just a few hours earlier, he had written, "The knife is already ready." But here's the real question. How did this even start? Alright guys, let me grab you for just a minute. I'm really curious where you're all watching from, so drop a comment and tell me your city and what time it is for you right now. Thanks for sticking with me. Go ahead and write it in the comments, and I'll keep going. Police in Thame, Oxfordshire, England, got a call from a concerned resident asking them to come out to Ireton Court. Please, my neighbor. This man is brutally attacking this woman, and there are kids in there. I'm sorry, I'm shaking right now. Because my neighbor next door is being badly beaten, the caller said. When emergency services arrived at the scene, what they saw, it was a real nightmare. Michaela Hall was born on February 7th, 1983, to her mother Julie. She was an only child, and the two of them were incredibly close, like basically inseparable. Julie was a single mom who worked hard to give Michaela the best possible start in life, and they spent pretty much all their time together. Michaela grew up into a happy, confident young woman with a tight circle of friends she loved being around. Later on, she married a local man from Oxford, but the marriage eventually fell apart, and they went their separate ways. It was a really tough time for her. She struggled to come to terms with the end of that relationship. One of the things Michaela and Julie loved most was traveling to Turkey. On one of those trips, Julie met a man named Mehmet Sahin. He later said he knew right away she was the one for him. After they fell in love, they got married in 2002, and Mehmet moved to the UK to live in Oxford with his wife and his stepdaughter. In 2007, Michaela traveled to Turkey again. That's where she met a waiter working at a resort hotel, a man named Ensar Gal. Their relationship started quickly, and she fell for him. Not long after, she went back to Turkey again just to see him. A few weeks after returning to the UK, Michaela found out she was pregnant. She was determined to make the relationship work and couldn't wait to have her baby. They kept a long-distance relationship, and every few months Michaela would fly out to Turkey to see Ensar. In 2008, they had their first child, a daughter. Just a few weeks after giving birth, she found out she was pregnant again, and the following year, they had a son. Being a mother meant everything to Michaela. One of her friends described her son and daughter as her right and left hands. Julie absolutely adored her grandchildren too. She was always watching over them, never taking her eyes off them. But after the children were born, Ensar's true personality started to show. He became extremely controlling and possessive. When Michaela was in Turkey, he would tell her where she could or couldn't go, what she could or couldn't do. And even when she was back in the UK, he still controlled her, even from another country. Michaela wanted her children to have a father in their lives. She really hoped he would move to the UK so they could be together and try to fix their relationship. As a working mom with 2 young kids, her life was already stressful, and she constantly struggled financially. But she was determined, so she kept spending a lot of money on flights to Turkey to see Ensar. Sometimes she took the kids with her, and sometimes she left them with her mother because, honestly, he didn't like sharing her attention with the children. He took advantage of her kindness, and because of that, her financial situation got much worse. She would buy him gifts in the UK and send them over to Turkey. People who knew them said that while he was still in Turkey, the relationship didn't really mean much to him. He continued having sexual relationships with other women. The violence in their relationship started getting worse when Michaela traveled to Turkey with the kids to see him. Julie went with them too and stayed at the hotel, looking after the grandchildren. One early morning, Michaela and Ensar came back, and an argument broke out in the kitchen. When he started raising his voice, Michaela told him to calm down because the kids were sleeping. She didn't want to wake them. And then, he raised his fist and swung at her. Julie stepped in between them, trying to stop him, but he pushed her aside and hit Michaela. Later, Julie told her friends that when she looked into his eyes, it felt like he wanted to kill her. She had already felt uneasy about him for a long time, and this incident only made that feeling stronger. Despite all of this, Michaela held on to the hope that once he left Turkey and moved to the UK to live with her and the kids, things would get better. But instead, the problems only grew. Ensar had avoided mandatory military service in Turkey, and because of that, he wasn't allowed to move to the UK until he completed it. His visa was put on hold. Michaela spent a lot of money trying to help him find ways around it. Eventually, he agreed to serve when it became clear that it was the only option, the only way he'd get a visa. But even that created more problems. He blamed Michaela for having to do military service, even though she had absolutely no control over it. In December 2010, while he was still in the military, he suddenly broke up with her. No warning, no explanation, nothing. Michaela was completely devastated. She started talking to her ex in Turkey and decided to go there to see him. But later she said it was a mistake. Like, she believed she should have tried to fix things with Ensar and save the relationship instead. She went back to the UK and honestly, in a bit of panic, asked her friends to help erase any trace of her communication with her ex. She knew that if Ensar found out, he could completely lose it. A few days later, Michaela got a call. It was Ensar acting like nothing had even happened. They agreed to give their relationship another chance. Her friends warned her, told her to really think it through and not go back to him, but she chose to try again. In March 2011, she went to Turkey, and the two of them got married. Julie refused to go. Michaela didn't even tell her friends about the wedding. Some of them only found out through Facebook when Julie posted a message congratulating the couple. Michaela returned to Britain and started the process of getting a visa for her new husband. But not long after, he found out that she had gone to Turkey earlier to see her ex, and that made him furious. He became even more verbally aggressive during their conversations. He would often push her to tears, and her friends heard the way he spoke to her too, telling her that this kind of behavior wasn't normal, that he had no right to treat her like that. He constantly bombarded her phone with calls. Even late at night one time, he called her 26 times. By August 2011, it pushed her into a deep depression, and according to a friend, she even started having thoughts of suicide. Her friend told her to just turn off her phone. The next day, Michaela found out his visa had been approved, and it had already been sent to him. And the day after that, Ensar got on a plane to the UK and left Turkey. He moved in with Michaela and their children at Julie and Mehmet's house in Thame, Oxfordshire. The tension started building almost immediately. Julie's hatred toward Ensar was mutual, and on his side, he couldn't stand how close she was with her daughter. Other people around Michaela also saw how deeply controlling and abusive he was. One of her friends said that he straight up told her that Michaela would always be mine. His resentment toward Julie, living in her house, and this growing need for revenge after he found out Michaela had seen her ex. Even though he was the one who had ended things without warning, it all started building up inside him. This wasn't some sudden outburst. It built slowly, day by day, turning into this constant internal pressure that just kept getting stronger. His thoughts became more and more focused on resentment, jealousy, and control, all mixing together into something dangerous. During one conversation with Mehmet, Ensar said he wanted to kill Michaela. He said it plainly, no filter. But Mehmet brushed it off. Like, he thought it was just something people say when they're angry, not something to take literally. At the time, it sounded like an emotional overreaction, not a real threat. One morning, Michaela called her friend. She was terrified. You could hear it in her voice. She couldn't hide it. She said Ensar had told her that if she came back home, he would cut off her head. That wasn't just an argument. That wasn't just a threat. It sounded direct, brutal, something that left a real sense of danger hanging in the air. Just 2 weeks after he arrived in England, a ticket was bought for him to go back to Turkey for good. It looked like an attempt to end everything, to break off a situation that was getting more and more intense. Michaela was devastated. Even after everything, she was still trying to save the relationship, begging him to give them one last chance to fix things. You could hear the hope in her words somehow. It still hadn't faded. But on the way to the airport, he changed his mind. He decided not to leave and went back to the family home. It was sudden, unexpected. Like he turned around at the last possible moment, refusing to walk away. And with that decision, the tension didn't disappear. It came right back with him, only now it felt even more dangerous. On September 2nd, he spent the night with a woman from a local bar, once again showing complete indifference toward his wife and his marriage. This didn't feel like some random mistake, it seemed more like a deliberate choice, something that clearly showed how detached he had become, like he just didn't care about any kind of commitment anymore. His behavior during those days kept exposing this growing gap between what he said and what he actually did. The next day, September 3rd, Ensar met with the same woman again. This wasn't a one-time thing, it repeated the day before, almost like he was reinforcing that same pattern. He also drank a significant amount of alcohol, which only made his state more unstable, and he missed his shift at the local restaurant Prezzo. That was another clear sign he was completely ignoring his responsibilities and any sense of normal routine. After that, at around 1:15 in the morning on September 4th, he went to a takeaway place where Mehmet worked. It was late, the kind of hour when the city is already quiet, and anyone showing up stands out more. He approached him and asked a question that, at first, might have sounded normal, but in the context of what happened next, it takes on a completely different meaning. If something happens to Michaela and Julie, what's going to happen to the kids? Mehmet thought it was just drunken talk. At the time, it didn't sound unusual or dangerous, more like a random comment that didn't really mean anything. No one could have imagined there was something much more serious behind it. At 2:10 in the morning, Ensar Gal returned to Ireton Court. It was deep into the night, the kind of hour when most people are asleep, and the house felt quiet, peaceful, like nothing was wrong. Nothing on the outside hinted that everything was about to change in just a few minutes. Julie and their friend Casey were watching TV in the living room. The atmosphere was calm, almost routine, that late-night quiet you get when the day is winding down. Upstairs, Michaela was asleep in one room with her daughter, and their son was in the next room. The house was silent, broken only by the sound of the television. Ensar went into the kitchen, took a knife from a drawer, and then walked upstairs. His actions were steady, deliberate, no hesitation. Every step brought him closer to what was about to happen. He walked into the bedroom where his wife and daughter were sleeping. It was supposed to be a safe place, but that's where everything turned into violence. That's where he started the attack, repeatedly stabbing Michaela. It happened suddenly, without warning, in the middle of the night, when everything was supposed to be quiet. And just like that, the silence turned into chaos and screams. Julie and Casey ran upstairs to see what was happening. Their reaction was instant. They heard the noise and rushed to help. When Julie entered the bedroom, she saw Ensar on top of Michaela, stabbing her in the neck. It was brutal, shocking. She tried to pull him away, but she slipped and fell to the floor, losing her balance in that critical moment. That's when Ensar turned on her and started stabbing her just as relentlessly. The violence didn't stop. Casey was also attacked. She suffered 4 stab wounds, one of them missing a major lung vein by just millimeters. It was incredibly close, like she survived by pure luck. Casey managed to escape the house and run, but Julie couldn't. As she tried to reach the door, she collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. She was just steps away from safety, but because of massive blood loss, she couldn't move anymore. Her strength was gone. Ensar Gal then took their 3-year-old daughter and disappeared into the night. It was sudden, disturbing. He just left, walking away from the scene and the people who needed help. The child was with him, not understanding what was happening, but definitely feeling the fear of that night. Hearing the screams, a concerned neighbor immediately called the police. It was one of those calls where you can hear panic in every word. Soon after, emergency services arrived, and the silence of the night was replaced by sirens and urgent movement. Casey was taken to John Radcliffe Hospital, where she eventually recovered. Her condition was serious, but she survived, which, honestly, was a rare outcome in this case. Julie was found curled up in a fetal position, just inches from the door. She was so close to getting out, but she couldn't take that final step. Michaela was found in the bedroom, another part of this horrific scene. And from that moment, a massive manhunt for Ensar Gal began. CCTV cameras caught him walking through the streets, carrying his little daughter in his arms. His movements looked calm, almost normal, which only made it more unsettling. The knife he used was still with him, and his clothes were covered in blood. There was no doubt about what had happened. He eventually made his way to the pizza place where Mehmet worked and shouted, "No one believed me, but I did it. I stabbed them both." Then he set his daughter down on the ground and told Mehmet to take care of her. It was a quick, sharp moment. No warmth, no concern, just a cold instruction, right in the middle of everything that had already spiraled out of control. The child was suddenly in the middle of something she couldn't understand, but she could feel it. The fear, the chaos, all of it. Mehmet did everything he could to calm the frightened, traumatized little girl, while calling 999 at the same time. His voice was probably shaking, but he tried to stay clear, focused, giving information, keeping it together. At the same time, he was trying to be there for her, talking to her, keeping her close, even though he himself was under intense stress. Those were seconds where he had to act fast, pushing through the shock and fear. While he was wandering through the city, Ensar was calling his family in Turkey. And that, honestly, creates this really disturbing contrast between what had just happened and the way he was acting afterward. His movements through the streets seemed almost aimless, but at the same time, he was staying in touch with his family, like he was talking about something normal, something familiar. In those moments, he wasn't hiding, he wasn't rushing, he was just moving through the city, making calls, as if what had happened that night didn't create any sense of urgency or panic for him. Those calls add another layer to understanding his behavior: cold, detached, almost impossible to fully make sense of. CCTV footage also shows a man walking up to him, asking for a lighter. It looks like a completely normal, everyday moment, just a quick interaction that should have lasted a few seconds. But everything changes instantly. The second that man notices the knife in Ensar's hand, he immediately backs off, like almost on instinct. His reaction is sharp, sudden, like he realizes the danger right away. The cameras also captured the moment Ensar Gal was detained by two police officers. It happens fast, but you can feel the tension in every movement. The officers approach carefully, staying in control, fully aware of who they're dealing with. In that moment, everything comes down to seconds and precision. And then, he said to them, "Yeah, I killed them, but you don't know why." Senior investigating officer, Detective Inspector Joe Kidman, later praised the officers who arrested him, pointing out that they were unarmed and showed real courage and restraint. According to him, it was a high-risk situation where every decision mattered, and it was their composure that made it possible to detain the suspect without even worse consequences. This was the kind of work that demands not just professionalism, but serious inner strength. During questioning, he complained about the blood on his clothes, focusing on that like it was the main issue. His words sounded detached, almost casual, and there was no real sense that he understood the scale of what had happened. He showed almost no remorse, no emotion you'd expect after something like this. That coldness just made everything about his behavior feel even more disturbing. And just 3 hours before the murders, he had written to his cousin on Facebook, "You'll see, tomorrow all the English newspapers will be talking about me, a crazy Turkish wolf who flooded London with blood. The knife is already ready, you know I'm good with it." After the post-mortem examinations of Julie and Michaela, it was determined that most of the stab wounds were to the chest and neck vital areas where injuries lead to rapid, massive blood loss. Those findings didn't leave much room for doubt. The attack was targeted, deliberate, and carried out with extreme brutality. Every single blow had the potential to be fatal. Julie suffered more than 50 stab wounds, and Michaela more than 40. On paper, those are just numbers, but behind them is a level of violence that's honestly hard to comprehend. The number of injuries went far beyond anything that could be explained as a moment of impulse. It pointed to the duration and intensity of the attack. And all of this happened in front of their 3-year-old daughter, who became a silent witness to something no child should ever see. At the same time, their 2-year-old son was in the next room, just walls away from everything that was happening. And when you think about that, it makes the whole situation feel even heavier. Ensar Gall was charged with the murders of his wife and mother-in-law, as well as the attempted murder of Casey. The charges were clear and direct, reflecting the full seriousness of what had happened. He was scheduled to appear at Oxford Magistrates' Court that same Tuesday, where the case would move forward through the legal system. During his first court appearance, he pleaded not guilty to all charges, even as the evidence and circumstances were already starting to form a clear and deeply disturbing picture of what had taken place. In May 2012, it was time for Ensar Gall's trial. The atmosphere in the courtroom was tense even before it began. Everyone understood that what was coming would be difficult to hear. For the family, this wasn't just a trial, it was like being dragged back into the worst night of their lives. His behavior shocked people. He was photographed walking into court, smiling at the cameras. And it wasn't a nervous smile. It looked confident, almost disturbingly relaxed. He laughed and smiled while sitting in the dock, showing no remorse, no regret, nothing that you'd expect from someone who had taken 2 lives and shattered so many others. The contrast with the emotions in the courtroom was intense. He claimed he felt trapped in the marriage and said he didn't love Michaela, but his actions told a different story. The facts showed that he had continued to keep Michaela close, maintaining a relationship he himself described as unbearable. That suggests he was getting something out of it, like he wasn't someone without a choice. When it came time to testify about the events of September 4th, he told the court that Julie had attacked him first and that he acted in self-defense. His version sounded structured, but there was something off about it. At one point, he even took a pen from his interpreter and made a stabbing motion, trying to demonstrate his version of events. The judge immediately stepped in and ordered him to put the pen back, stopping that unsettling gesture right away. You could feel the tension in the room spike in that moment. He also claimed he was unhappy in the marriage and had been forced into it. But it didn't sound like accountability, more like an attempt to shift the blame. There was no remorse in those words. And the self-defense claim didn't hold up at all. The number of stab wounds Michaela and Julie suffered went far beyond anything that could be considered reasonable self-defense. It pointed to something else entirely: prolonged, intentional, and brutal violence. The work of the police and the prosecution completely dismantled his version. The crime scene, the blood pattern analysis, the damage to the furniture, all of it told a different story. When you put those details together, it became clear. He was the one who attacked them. Every piece of evidence chipped away at his claims. Michaela and Julie's family and friends sat in the courtroom, crying as CCTV footage was shown. In those clips, he's walking through the city with a knife in his hand, calm, unhurried, like nothing had happened. For them, it wasn't just video, it was a glimpse into the final moments before everything changed forever. Prosecutor Dafate Enoch told the court that the marriage had been unhappy, and that things were made worse by Ensar missing Turkey. He acknowledged those factors, but made it clear, none of that could justify or explain what he did. He described it as a senseless slaughter, driven by calculated and merciless violence. His words felt like a final, clear conclusion from the prosecution. Richard Rock from the South Central Ambulance Service also gave evidence. He said he would never forget the look in Michaela's eyes, a look filled with pain and suffering. According to him, that image would stay with him for the rest of his life, like a permanent reminder of that night. Casey also testified, explaining how she and Julie ran upstairs after hearing the noise. She spoke quietly, but every word carried weight. She said that giving evidence in court was the hardest thing she had ever gone through, even harder than the memories she had tried to forget. On May 31st, 2012, the jury delivered its verdict. Ensar Gall was found guilty of the attempted murder of Casey, as well as the murders of Julie and Michaela. It was the outcome of everything, all the evidence, all the testimony, all the hearings. He was sentenced to life in prison, 36 years for each murder, and 12 years for the attempted murder, all to be served concurrently. The numbers were read out clearly, without emotion, but behind them were destroyed lives and irreversible loss. And then, the judge said to him, "I have no doubt that you intended to kill your wife, Michaela, and your mother-in-law, Julie. These were brutal murders, planned and premeditated. You claim that you were unhappy here, and that you didn't get along with your mother-in-law. I completely reject any suggestion that anything she said or did could be considered a mitigating factor. The pain and suffering you've caused this family will be long-lasting, and it will stay with them for the rest of their lives. During sentencing, Ensar nodded and smiled. And as he was being led out of the courtroom, he started smiling, laughing, pointing at himself, silently mouthing, "Me, me, me." For the loved ones left behind, no sentence ever felt like enough. No number of years in prison, no words from the judge could come close to what had been taken from them. The emptiness that followed that night, it couldn't be measured, couldn't be contained. It was something beyond numbers, beyond any kind of justice the court could offer. Mehmet said, "I met Julie when I was 23, and I was incredibly lucky to spend 12 years with the only love of my life. I know she loved me just as much as I loved her." His words were calm, controlled, but you could feel the weight behind them, a deep, almost unbearable loss. Every sentence sounded like it took effort, like he was reliving everything that had been destroyed. It wasn't just a statement, it was a memory of a life that would never come back. He also said he was relieved that the jury didn't believe what had been said about Julie during the trial, the version of her the defense tried to present, suggesting she had somehow provoked what happened. For him, that mattered. It really mattered, that the truth about her remained untouched, that her name didn't become part of someone else's excuse. After the sentencing, Detective Inspector Joe Kidman said, "In trying to avoid responsibility for his crimes, Ensar Gall attempted to smear the character of the two women he murdered. That only added to the terrible suffering of the family, who sat through the trial every day and listened to all the evidence." His words were clear, almost cold, like a final summary of everything that had happened. Not emotional, just facts, backed by broken lives. Despite their pain, they showed great dignity. It was a short sentence, but it carried a lot. You could almost feel the silence of the courtroom, the tension of every hearing, and the strength of the people who had to face what had destroyed their world. The scale of what happened on the night of September 4th is hard to fully grasp. It wasn't just one night. It was a ripple effect that spread far beyond it. Broken lives, shattered families, everything split into before and after. For those who were left behind, the pain is indescribable. It doesn't fade with time, it doesn't disappear, it doesn't become something you can just ignore. It becomes part of every day, every thought, every memory. And Mehmet said, "There's a huge emptiness in my life now. 2 children have been left without their grandmother, without their mother, and without their father. He took everything from me. I didn't even realize before that they were the only reason I lived, the only real joy in my life."